Hi, I would like to thank you all for participating in our experiment on human memory. The purpose of this experiment is to understand how individuals remember items from different positions within a list. Before we move on to the instructions for the experiment, just a reminder that your participation is voluntary and you are free to withdraw at any time without any consequences. Your decision to participate or not will not affect you in any way. Thank you so much.
To prevent any distractions from the setting, the participants we selected for today's session were initially directed to an unused classroom or empty space. These subjects have all consented to participate in the study and had their demographic and gender information collected. These participants had not previously been exposed to the information linked to the experiment that we will be doing, which helps to assure the validity and reliability of our results later on. All of you are invited to take part in our experiment on serial position today to learn how people's memory recall functions and how they exhibit better memory performance for the items that will be presented later on. Besides, we aim to observe the overall pattern of recall performance across the entire group of participants. If that makes sense, now let's move on to the instructions for the experiment. Please follow these rules carefully to make sure that everyone is on the same page.
For this experiment, we will start by addressing to all of you a list of names. This list consists of 15 names. We will address the list once. We advise you to really pay attention to this list of names. Okay, now that everyone has seen the list of names, we will give everyone a pen and paper. Don't forget to write down your names on the paper we're giving you. Now that you have the paper in front of you, it is time for all of you to write down the names that were addressed to you previously on the paper that have been provided. Write down as many names as you can recall. After you all have finished writing down all the names you can remember, we will give you a 5-minute break. After the 5-minute break, we will address to you a different list in which you will again have to pay attention to this list of names, then write down all the names you can remember.
Can you see?
have finished writing down the names you can recall, I think we'll start gathering all the papers back up. Please wait for a little while so that our team can collect all the papers. Our team will be looking at your answers to see whether you have better memory performance for the names that were presented at the beginning, that is called primacy effect, or the names presented at the end, that is called recency effect, of a list compared to the names presented in the middle.
Thank you for participating in our experiment on the serial position effect. Before we conclude, we would like to provide you with some information about the experiment. During the experiment, you were all presented with a list of items and were asked to recall as many items as possible in order to test the serial position effect. Our goal was to investigate if there is a consistent pattern of recall performance across different positions within the list. We were particularly interested in examining whether participants showed better recall for items at the beginning and the end of the list
Serial
compared
position
to items
effect
in the
refers
middle.
to the tendency for individuals to remember and recall information differently based on its position in a list or sequence. It is a phenomenon observed in the field of cognitive psychology and memory research. This effect has been widely observed in memory research. The serial position effect is characterized by enhanced recall for beginning of list items, primary effect, and end of list items, recency effect, relative to middle items. Primary effect is typically attributed to differential rehearsal of beginning of list items relative to the following items. For example, in Kelly and Risco's 2019 study, participants who freely rehearsed were significantly more likely to accurately recall beginning of list items than participants who only researched the current items one at a time, which is called primary effect. In simple words, the primary effect is a tendency to remember primary words in the list that is presented. While recency effect has often been attributed to end-of-list items being retained in an activated, more accessible state, allowing for enhanced recall. Alternatively, recency may also reflect a greater likelihood of retrieving the more similar temporal context associated with end-of-list items compared with earlier items during recall. Kelly and Risco 2019. Additionally, the recency effect proposed that items presented at the end of the list are better remembered due to their more recent presentation. These items are still recent in the short-term memory when participants are likely to recall them. Thus, they can be easily retrieved. So, the basis for recency effect is that participants can remember the recent words, which is end of word list. The recency effect is one of the most ubiquitous findings in research on memory. Negative recency effects, or the observation that things at the end of the list do not necessarily have an advantage over earlier items, have featured heavily in theoretical reasoning, maybe as a result of this. They also seem to go against what a hypothesis based on distinctiveness would suggest at first look. How is it possible that the final item, the one that was just provided, is less noticeable than earlier items? Neath, 1993. In particular, we aim to distinguish serial position effect on two different tests of memory: item memory and relation memory. Item memory refers to the memory which items have been presented on a list, irrespective of their positions. Relation memory additionally requires memories for relations between items, or memory for relations of some items to some aspect of their context. Jones and Obrow 2013. The difference between relation memory and item memory is theoretically intriguing, since items can be maintained by just momentarily maintaining the activation of their representations, whereas relation memory may require that each item be bound to a context or position marker. Therefore, separating the effects of serial position on item memory from those on relation memory can reveal whether serial position impacts the strength of item context connections or item memory, for example, through sustained activation, or both.
The data collected from this experiment will be analyzed to determine if there is evidence of the serial position effect. If the pattern of better recall for items at the beginning and end of the list emerges, it would support the existence of this effect. We greatly appreciate your participation and thank you once again for your involvement in this study. Wait. I filmed you guys both watching. Let's go. Thank you.